Welcome back. I want to introduce our next program segment, something we've incorporated into this event since our first year. Short case studies showcasing new or innovative partnerships between patient organizations and industry and academic partners. The two case studies you'll see presented today were chosen from a number nominated by MassBio members and patient partners, and each will highlight the details, goals, and lessons learned from their collaborations. The goal of this segment is to help showcase a couple of examples and strategies that can be replicated beyond a disease area or beyond one particular partnership. First up today are Justine Levin-Allerhand, the Chief Development and External Relations Officer at the Broad Institute, and Leslie Solomon, who's co-founder of the Food Allergy Science Initiative, to talk about the initiative announced just a few short months ago. Justine and Leslie.
Hi, thank you for having me. Can everyone hear me okay? All right, awesome. So I'm going to talk quickly. Whoops, that are our slides? Okay, I'm going to talk fast, but just like give me the slow down sign if it's too fast. So I'm going to talk today about a recipe that we've kind of put together around our Food Allergy Science Initiative. But before I do that, I just wanted to kind of give high level what's going on and what we did. So I am the executive director of the Innovation Hub at Brigham and Women's Hospital and the director of innovation strategy in the Brigham Research Institute. My day job is spent working with clinicians and scientists to take their ideas for improving care and turn them into new products or services to impact patient lives and providers too. So about a year and a half ago, when I was at a local hospital, giving my son who has severe food allergies, a baked milk challenge. If you can have baked milk, it helps you grow out of your milk allergy. My son is anaphylactic to milk. So we're at the hospital and he had a bite of a muffin and it had baked milk in it, and literally within seconds he was into full anaphylaxis. They gave him 2 EpiPens, still wasn't breathing. He was saying to me, "Mommy, when am I going to be able to breathe? I can't breathe, what's going on?" We were rushed down to the emergency room, spent the night there. Just so you know, he's fine now. He's great. He's wonderful. But I spent the night online thinking to myself, why am I not working on the thing that's the most important to me? And spent looking, what's being spent in food allergy research, what are the therapeutics that are out there. I was ready to in-license a compound and start a therapeutics company and cure food allergies. I had all these thoughts. And then I ultimately spent the next 6 months talking to every single person that I knew that was related to either science, medicine, food allergies, money, and went from there. So we're going to talk through the recipe. I'm not going to go through this now, but you'll see each of these come up, and then I'm going to turn it over to Justine in a little bit. But the first piece of the recipe is a critical challenge. And so let me just see, I'm going to skip around a little bit, but the critical challenge is that 17 million people in the United States have food allergy. 3 to 5% of the US population is food allergic. That's 6 to 8% of children. That's 2 kids in every classroom. There's a heavy burden on quality of life due to constant risk of life-threatening anaphylactic shock. I can't tell you how many times I've sat at the playground kind of watching my, when he was a baby, making sure that there was no food, or what were the crackers that were sitting on the, jungle gym. It's scary. So it's also a $25 billion annual economic burden. And the prevalence has grown over the last decades. From 1997 to 2011, food allergies grew by 50%. And then hospitalizations for children with food allergies increased about 90,000 per year. So quickly, the goal of the Food Allergy Science Initiative is to unlock the field of food allergy. So we call it FOSSI, the Food Allergy Science Initiative. We've already raised $10 million to take an unprecedented, comprehensive approach to understanding the key underlying biological mechanisms of food allergy so we can drive more effective diagnostics, treatments, and prevention. And we're going to get a little bit more into that, but I just wanted you to kind of see the big success at the end so that you're not waiting to see what happened. The quick timeline is we put this together in less than a year. So in my meetings with everyone that I could come into contact with, someone did connect me to 3 other moms who were also thinking about how could we do more work in food allergies. And I think that ultimately what I found and what we started to work on was that there was a lot of work being done in the food allergy field, but there just wasn't the core understanding of what was going on at the biological level. Anyone that you talk to about food allergies, the first thing they say is, why, what's going on? Why is it so much? Why do I know so many people with food allergies? And the fact that no one can answer that question means that there's something that we don't know. And then there's also a lot of systems happening, systems related to food allergies. And so we wanted to kind of think about that as well. So the founders all met in August of 2015. We all have day jobs, and I'll tell you about the moms, but there are 2 doctors on a team, a lawyer and myself. But somehow we managed to put together this food allergy symposium in December of 2015. I'll talk to you a little bit about that. In February to April of 2016, we got a scientific team together to meet, and we brought the Broad on board. And then in April of 2016, our scientific plan was complete. And then in May of 2016, we finalized $10 million in funding so that we were able to launch at the Broad in June. And again, I'll go into that. Why isn't this going forward? There we go. So these are the other moms. They couldn't be here today, but I think that what's important to realize is that these are very driven women who love their kids. The oldest of all of our kids is my son, who's 7. The youngest is a newborn who's about 4 months old. And so catalytic patient advocates was another piece of the recipe that, as Justine and I were thinking about this, this is kind of what led to our success. This is what we showed at our symposium. This is why we are doing this. This is why we brought the symposium together. This is a picture of some of our kids that have food allergies. My son Dylan's allergic to dairy, peanuts, and tree nuts. Other kids have sesame is really bad. Other kids have sunflower really bad. So there's a lot of mixtures here. I think that this slide is also why we are doing this. Every September, kids go to college, and they are not under our watch. And every September, we hear these horrible things in the news about kids who die because they didn't have their EpiPen or they didn't, trust themselves. And so why we are doing this is my kid is 7. Before he goes to college, there's got to be something better. There has to be a different option. This is not acceptable to us. So let me breathe for a second. This was the agenda from our symposium in the fall of 2015. The great thing was that the Broad was already engaged with us, and we were already talking to them, and some of their people were actually at the symposium. So real quickly, I don't know if you can read this, but David Altschuler, who was one of the founders of the Broad, who's now the Chief Scientific Officer of Vertex, was there. He opened it up. We then had scientists from Children's Hospital, Mass General. But I think the thing that I want to get across most here is that it wasn't just a group of scientists in food allergy. It was scientists from a lot of different fields. So remember I said my job is working at the Brigham with scientists and clinicians. So every day I get to hear scientists talk about the amazing work they're doing in cancer, the incredible work they're doing in HIV, all of the work they're doing in autoimmune disease. And so what I said to myself is I want those brains thinking about food allergies. And how do I get those brains to think about food allergies? And I knew money had to be part of it, but some of these people actually don't need money. Some of them just need the desire. And so what we wanted to do is bring successful stories. We asked Ram Xavier, who works in microbiome, we said, come and talk to us about how your experience with IBD could be related to food allergy. Vijay Kutru, we said, talk about what you've done in autoimmune disease. Aviv Rega from the Broad worked with Vijay on autoimmune disease and unraveling the cells of that. And so we wanted them to talk about their experience in other fields. And so fortunately, we got them excited. And I'm going to turn this over to Justine now, but I think that the next piece of the recipe was the scientists. And so with that, there's...
Great. Thank you, everyone. So it's really been a terrific journey. As you know from the introduction, I work at the Broad Institute and I'm responsible for fundraising and external relations. And to go back to what Leslie really was speaking about, what we want to portray today is what's the recipe to bring together outstanding patient advocates who have a real vision with an institution that also wants to make a difference in the world and help advance science and medicine and change the face of disease. So another piece is the scientific dream team. In order for us to take a complex problem like food allergy, that, as Leslie noted, really has no clear basic biological underpinnings that we have identified to date, we need to take people from across the scientific spectrum, tell me if you can hear me okay, across the scientific spectrum to help tackle that. So what you saw here is, all of a sudden we bring together a group of scientists who really could work synergistically. There were hints of it both at the symposium, but then also pairwise connections that were already taking place between Aviv and Vijay, and between Ramnik and Aviv, and Ruslan and Ramnik. And all of a sudden, we had hints of a team. And we really then coalesced that team through a series of meetings that took place at the Broad Institute. Many of you know the Broad Institute of MIT and Harvard was established in 2004 as a joint venture between Harvard and MIT in order to leverage the opportunity in genomic medicine. It was shortly after the first human genome was sequenced. Everyone who was involved, including Eric Lander, who was the lead author and the founder of the Broad, lead author of the paper of the human genome, knew that having one genome was great, but really we needed to leverage the power of genomics to understand the basis of disease, the biological underpinnings, and then to develop targeted therapies around those biological mechanisms. So we had this group, as Leslie noted in the timeline, they started meeting and developing a scientific plan. It was clear they could each bring their unique strengths. Ruslan Mezatov, a world-renowned immunologist. Vijay Kutro, also an immunologist and focusing on autoimmune and neurological disorders. Aviv Regev, who is a computational biologist, a systems biologist, who develops technologies and is an experimentalist. Wayne Schreffler, who's an allergist at Mass General and leads the Food Allergy Center at Mass General. And Ramnik Xavier, who's the chief of gastroenterology at Mass General and is a world-renowned expert in IBD, so in inflammatory bowel disease. So you see, all these people touch food allergy. Ruslan, who actually is our scientific champion, the lead, already had almost 50% of his scientific program focused on food allergy. But all the others were really complementary. You know, there's a lot you can learn from what we discovered in IBD, which is a disease of the gut that may relate to food allergy. So another part of the recipe, as I've noted, is you could have the people, you could have the patient advocates, but you need a place for the work to be done. And as I mentioned, the Broad is a place that likes to bring together relevant folks around a research area, around a disease area, to help catalyze that effort. And it's not that we take on every disease, because there has to be a faculty champion, there has to be a scientific champion, and there have to be ways that the Broad is uniquely positioned to take on the problem and to leverage the high throughput, large-scale technology platforms that we have, and the teams and the way that we work around disease. So in this case, that was check that off. So we have the advocates, we have the funding, we have the scientific team, we have the place. Now we need the compelling problem. I think it's clear there's a compelling problem, but what could the Broad do and this team do? We need to unlock knowledge. The basic understanding of how food allergens elicit the immune response is largely unknown. Frankly, the purpose of an allergic reaction is somewhat misunderstood. Why do people have reactions at all, let alone outsized, dangerous anaphylactic responses? And in addition, most diseases are abnormal versions of a normal biological process. What's the normal biological process here that's going wrong? We need to figure that out. That's the compelling problem. And that's what draws in bright minds like the folks that we've assembled here. So as part of the planning process, we need to have a real thorough scientific plan that we could then have milestones, both for the scientific community, but then also all of the funders, to say, what are the things that we could do now that can be catalytic? We're likely not going to solve food allergy in 5 years, but if the work of FOSSI can help unlock the field, bring in new biological mechanisms that could help develop new therapeutics. Right now, the only thing you do for food allergy is you avoid the food and you have an EpiPen on hand. That can't possibly be a solution, as Leslie noted. So these are, just at a very high level, the things that this team came together, said, these are things that we could do within the next 5 years that would be transformational for this field. Defining the cellular landscape of the gut. So why is that important? We already know that in different disease states, you have different portions of cells that are clearly acting and causing reactions in the body that are resulting in symptoms. So just understanding the cellular landscape. So why couldn't we done this before? Well, it turns out the technology to actually isolate single cells from a tissue and understand what's going on, what genes are being expressed, is a relatively new discovery. It's a process that Aviv Regev, who's one of the people, helped really change the face of biology by being able to isolate individual cells, understanding their expression. So now you could actually take the entire gut and say, in an allergic situation, let's look at tissue versus a non. What's going on? What are the proportion of different cells? What are the mechanisms of allergen sensing? What's happening when the body receives an allergenic compound? What molecular changes are happening? What's the actual immune response? Also, Ramnik Xavier, as Leslie mentioned, is an inflammatory bowel disease specialist and also has done an incredible job of trying to understand the microbiome. So what's happening in this pool of bacteria in your body that are actually helping, but what's happening in a disease state? So let's look at the microbiome in a food allergy case versus a non. And then finally, establishing clinically and translational projects that could actually take these findings and start developing therapeutic targets. It won't be tomorrow, but the goal is that it's within reach, is our view. So,
Yeah,
do you want to
no, go.
And once we did launch, it actually got the attention of many in the New England area. These are cases NPR, we had featured in Boston Globe, because this is clearly an unmet need. And this is, it's terrific to have the visibility around something that is so clearly important. And I encourage you, there's a great NPR piece where Leslie's featured and the other moms. So we're excited about what's ahead. We think that this is an interesting model for what can be done in other places. And, for me, it's, enormously rewarding to be involved in an effort that, we hope could affect millions of people, including my own son who's allergic to cashews and pistachios. So, we're all in it together, and we are eager to help move forward. So what's next?
So quickly, the press that you saw was, we didn't put that in the recipe, but it was key because when that happened, I got email, and I was the featured mom in most of the press, and so I got emails from across the world. And it was the most incredible thing. And some of it was, not necessarily relevant, but a lot of it was really, really powerful. And so, I think, the first bullet here is the science is beginning. They've hired an associate director, which is really exciting for us. And, quick side note, the day that the Broad said, yes, we want to host this, I literally bawled. I cried because I knew that meant we were going to cure this. No one else says that at the Broad, none of the scientists do, but I know that with the Broad on this, we're going to cure it. So, and I'm not stopping till we do. So, but the press has been amazing, and so some of the new efforts that are in the works, we're increasing federal funding for food allergies. We're working on that. So moms reach out to me who are chief of staff of this senator, or work for this senator here, or do this in DC, and they said, how can we help you? And I said, I know nothing about federal funding. Let's do that. And they said, great, we're going to put together a plan. So I'm going to DC in November to meet with some lobbying firms and to think about that. We're developing a plan for an industry consortium to support FOSI. So if anyone in here is at a relevant pharma company, we're starting to think about what that might look like and how that might work. So definitely let me know. And then we're also developing relationships with consumer packaged goods companies. So people from big brands started reaching out to me and said, they said, I want to be a food allergy ambassador for my brand. What can I do? And I said, great, let's come up with a program. And so that's another program that we're working on, and it's really exciting. So we're not stopping at the science, but all of it is to keep raising money to get more science. So that's it. And I think, there's our contact information. But if you're interested, let me know. And I think we have time for questions. Yeah.
Thank you. As a mom of 2 kids with anaphylactic food allergies, one to shellfish and one to nuts, but also other strange food allergies. Like I saw your son had bananas. My daughter's also allergic to bananas. Yeah. Carrots, a lot of uncooked fruits or vegetables they can't eat. But we've discovered that part of it, or one of the roles is they have mast cell activation syndrome. And I don't know if you guys are looking at the role of mast cell. Oh, you are?
Well, I think we're looking across the whole immune system. So
Right. I mean, I've found that, because I don't know if your kids have eczema or any of the other weird mast cell, like my daughter had dermatographism, and eczema and a lot of those things.
Born, yeah.
And in the end, it ended up everything that for my kids, because they have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which is multisystemic, and I believe, the result of overactive mast cells or mast cells just gone wild. And I believe that's the reason for their food allergies. I know everybody's different, but I definitely think a lot of these people with food allergies, mast cells are a huge issue.
So I think one of the things that I'm excited about with all of the different brains that we have thinking about this now, and more brains are getting involved, is that I actually think we're going to learn a lot about the immune system in general from this.
Absolutely.
And while we're 100% focused on food allergies, I think, this is me, non-scientist predicting, but I think that some things are going to come out of this that are going to inform other immune.
Absolutely. I think that because my children's disease is so multisystemic,
Yeah.
That you end up starting connecting the dots.
Right.
It's by studying one system.
Right, and I think scientifically we're now at a place where we can look at entire systems, and we have some of the technologies to think about entire systems that you could ask questions that you couldn't ask 10 years ago, and that's going to make all the difference.
Right.
Hi, I'm Leora Schiff with Altea Strategy Consulting. First of all, congratulations. It's phenomenal what you've accomplished in a year, and you really are to be congratulated for that. I'm curious, just hearing this one patient caregiver story about her children and the experiences she's had made me wonder if you've looked at incorporating a clinical component, maybe a registry or outreach to families, and to use that to start to map out common themes that can then feed back into the research.
Yes, the answer is absolutely yes. I think we're in the early discussion stages of what the best registry design should look like, how we should think about current registries. Wayne Schreffler, who's on the team, Mass General, is actively involved in some of the national registries. And there's no question that the closer we are to the clinic, the better off we're going to be able to actually fully understand what's going on and then have an impact. So having that dynamism is really important to the team. I think there's some key biological questions that could be asked immediately, either in model systems or from patient tissue, but ultimately that registry is very important. I'll also note that we recently added one additional scientist to that dream team from Children's Hospital. So between Mass General and Children's Hospital, I think we really are trying to cover some of the big places in Boston. There are obviously others, but some of the big places, but it's a great point.
Thanks. Hi, ladies. Kate from Idera Pharmaceuticals, and I agree that you're to be incredibly congratulated because it is no easy feat, and that's actually what I'm going to ask you about. So for the people in the room who are thinking, hey, I have a situation just like Leslie's, I have a problem that I want to solve, and I have a group that I want to help. I think, Leslie, how did you figure out what groups you should be partnering with? And then Justine, how did you at Broad say, yeah, this is something we should be doing, and here are the resources we have? So how could others replicate what you've done?
Yeah, so from my perspective, it would have been really easy to just do this at Brigham. I mean, not really easy, but but I worked there, and it would have been, or to go to Children's or to Mass General. But if any of you have dealt with academia, which likely you have, academia itself is siloed across different departments and groups, and then one hospital versus another. And if we stood this up as something that was at this one hospital, it would have been really hard to get the other hospitals involved. And so very early on, someone brought up the idea of the Broad as a very kind of neutral center. It's the Broad Institute of MIT and Harvard. So all of the teaching hospitals in Boston are already connected to it. We know that the Broad collaborates with people not just in Boston, but also around the world, so it wouldn't limit us to people in the Boston area as well. And it just had that ability to get other people involved and get people excited, and also the fact that what we heard when we met with them a lot was that how open they were and how they didn't protect scientific secrets. And it was really about getting data out there and information out there so that more people could work on it. And that, again, we're very driven. We have one specific need is to find better treatments, for food allergies. And so the more people that know about it and could get involved. So that's what drove us to the Broad, and also just realizing that, it was the basic biology that we needed to start with.
And I'll just answer quickly because I think we're almost out of time. For the Broad, in order for this to be something we want to take on, there are two major factors. One, it would have to align with our scientific priorities, and two, that there's a scientific champion. It was critical, and I hinted to, and I mentioned it briefly about Ruslan, but what's critical for something to be successful, and we see it time and time again, is someone who's literally getting up every morning saying, I need to solve this problem. And we had a terrific team around Boston, but Ruslan came in as a very known entity to everyone. I mean, he's a preeminent immunologist. Everyone was thrilled to be working with him. He's at Yale, and he would come up, and he could coalesce the team, own it in that way of being the champion, and bring the best out of all the different groups, all different folks who are of interest. On the scientific priority side, the Broad already was focused on what are we going to do for the next 10 years? And the outcome of that process was completely independent from this, was thinking about how do we think about immunology more creatively? How do we take on immunological disorders in new and creative ways? And how do we think about systems? So for instance, there was already discussions about a pilot to look at the gut as a whole system that affects many diseases across the periphery, so in the body as well as the brain. There's all kinds of connectivity that people speak about. So that was already a direction we were going. So food allergy just was essentially the first example that we could take on that would map onto those priorities. So we can't take on everything, but with those two elements, the champion and the priorities, we were primed and thrilled to partner. Okay. Thank you, everyone.